Have you ever had a boss who was so lazy, so utterly useless, that their only real job was making your life miserable? A petty tyrant who got a sick thrill from watching you suffer? I did. For 6 agonizing months, my manager, let's call him Mr. Collins, thought he held all the power. He thought he could break me. He laughed when I told him his pointless rules were destroying my health. What he didn't know was that with a few clicks, a bit of creativity, and a complete disregard for his peace and quiet, I was about to become the karma he never saw coming. And his most important tool, his phone, was about to become his greatest nightmare. If you've ever fantasized about getting the perfect, justified revenge on someone who absolutely, 100% deserved it, then you're in the right place. Do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and settle in. Because this isn't just a story about payback, it's a masterclass in psychological warfare. 6 months ago, I was so excited. I'd just landed a job at a promising new company. It felt like a huge step up. My resume was polished, my suit was pressed, and I walked in on my first day, 29 years old and ready to conquer the world. My department was small, just a handful of us, all managed by one man, Mr. Collins. At first glance, he seemed fine. Charismatic, even. He had that slick, confident smile of a man who's never had to work a hard day in his life. But it only took about 48 hours to see the truth behind the facade. Mr. Collins wasn't a manager. He was a king on a throne of cheap office furniture. And his kingdom was a place where productivity went to die. His daily routine was an art form of idleness. He'd saunter in around 9:30 a.m., coffee in hand, and plant himself in his glass-walled office. For the next 8 hours, we'd be treated to the Collins show. He'd lean back in his chair, feet propped up on his desk, and scroll endlessly through Instagram Reels, a faint, tinny laugh echoing out every few minutes. When he wasn't on social media, he was on the phone, catching up with old buddies, his voice booming with pointless stories and brash opinions. He wasn't working. He was just occupying space. But here was the kicker, the rule that made no sense. He was a dictator about one thing and one thing only, FaceTime. He demanded, and I mean demanded, that every single one of us be at our desks from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sharp. No exceptions. Now, you might be thinking, a 12-hour workday? You must have been swamped. Oh, how I wish that were true. Most days, my actual, tangible work was done by 4 p.m. The last 5 hours were a slow, silent torture. We'd just sit there, staring at our screens, pretending to look busy, the silence broken only by the sound of Collins's laughter from his office. It was a ghost ship, and he was the ghost captain, forcing us to sail to nowhere. For me, this wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a physical and mental drain. I lived a full 2 hours away from the office. A 9 p.m. departure meant I was lucky to be unlocking my front door by 11 p.m. By the time I scarfed down some leftovers, showered, and tried to decompress, it was often past midnight. My alarm, a cruel, shrieking demon, would go off at 5 a.m. I was living on fumes. My eyes were permanently bloodshot, dark circles etched beneath them like bruises. I'd get these splitting headaches that felt like a drill boring into my skull. I was jittery from caffeine, yet bone-tired. My mind felt foggy, my focus shattered. I wasn't just tired, I felt like I was slowly falling apart. After a few months of this living hell, I knew something had to change. I gathered my courage and walked into his office. "Mr. Collins?" I started, my voice trembling slightly. "I was hoping I could talk to you about my hours." He looked up from his phone, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. "What about them, Jenny?" "Well," I said, trying to keep my tone professional, "the commute is really taking a toll. The 12-hour days mean I'm only getting about 4 hours of sleep a night, and it's starting to affect my health. I was wondering if it would be possible for me to leave around 7 p.m. on days when my work is completed." He stared at me for a long moment. Then, he let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a friendly laugh. It was condescending, dismissive. "Jenny," he said, leaning forward as if explaining something to a child. "We're a team. We stay until the job is done. It's about commitment. It doesn't look good if people are just packing up and leaving whenever they feel like it." "But my work is done," I pleaded. I'm always finished by 4 or 5. It's just for my health. He waved a hand, cutting me off. Not my problem. 9 to 9. That's the policy. I walked out of his office feeling utterly defeated and, for the first time, truly angry. It wasn't about the work. It was about control. It was a power trip for him. So, I made a decision. I started leaving at 7 p.m. anyway. I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I'd finish my tasks, send a polite goodnight email, and walk out. He noticed. And he did not like it. That's when his petty tyranny escalated. Suddenly, at 6:55 p.m., just as I was packing my bag, an email from Collins would land in my inbox. The subject line would be something vague like, urgent task or quick question. The task itself would be meaningless, reformatting a spreadsheet that was already fine, finding a statistic he could have Googled in 10 seconds. But the final line was always the same, need this done by end of day. End of day. He was manufacturing work just to keep me there. He was punishing me for wanting to sleep. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The exhaustion and frustration curdled into a cold, hard resolve. I was sitting in my car in the office parking lot at 9:15 p.m., my head pounding, my hands shaking with rage. He wanted to play games? Fine. Two could play. But my game wouldn't be petty. It would be epic. The next day, I came into the office with a new kind of energy. It wasn't hope, it was purpose. During my lunch break, I didn't eat. I went to work. I opened my browser and navigated to a website known for its aggressive sales tactics, one of those sites where you compare personal loan offers. Under full name, I typed Mr. Collins. Under email, I put his work email. And for the phone number, I carefully typed in his personal cell number, the one he used for his hours-long chats with his buddies. I clicked submit. A message popped up, thank you. One of our representatives will contact you shortly. A wave of pure, unadulterated satisfaction washed over me. But I was just getting started. I found another site, this one for insurance policies. I filled out his details again. Then another for credit cards. And another for timeshare vacation packages. I became a connoisseur of digital lead generation forms. I signed him up for everything I could think of that guaranteed a relentless barrage of cold calls. Policy Bazaar, Bajaj Finance, sketchy loan apps, you name it, Collins was now a hot lead. The first call came that very afternoon. We all heard it. A loud, obnoxious ringtone echoed from his office. Hold on, Dave, we heard him say. Got a call coming through. There was a pause. Then his voice, laced with confusion. A personal loan? No, I didn't. No, I'm not interested. He hung up. 10 minutes later, it rang again. Hello? An insurance policy? Who is this? And again. And again. It was beautiful. His phone, his lifeline to the outside world of gossip and time wasting, had been weaponized against him. The best part? The most exquisitely perfect, poetic piece of this whole puzzle? His job, his one actual responsibility, was to talk to new customers, to be the first point of contact for potential clients. So he couldn't just ignore the calls. He couldn't screen the numbers. Every time his phone rang, he had to answer it with that slick, professional voice, because it could be $1 million deal. The next few weeks were a slow-motion psychological collapse, and I had a front-row seat. He'd answer the phone, his voice dripping with forced charm. Collins speaking. And we'd watch as his face went through a rapid series of transformations. First, polite confusion. I'm sorry, a what? Then, dawning realization. Oh, it's one of you again. Followed by barely concealed fury. Listen, I told you people to take me off your list. Do not call this number again. He'd slam the phone down, his face red, his hands trembling. His long, leisurely chats with friends disappeared. His Instagram scrolling sessions were constantly interrupted. The peaceful sanctuary of his office had become a torture chamber of endless, ringing anxiety. He started looking as tired and haggard as I had felt for months. The dark circles under his eyes were a mirror of my own. It was delicious. He'd storm out of his office, phone in hand, glaring at it like it was a venomous snake. Who is doing this? He'd mutter to himself, pacing the floor. This is harassment. I would just sit at my desk, typing away, looking as innocent as possible, and give him a look of mild, concerned sympathy. "Everything okay, Mr. Collins?" I'd ask, my voice dripping with fake concern. He'd just glare at me, his eyes filled with a paranoid rage, before retreating back into his office just in time for the next call. The grand finale came about a month into my campaign. He called a team meeting. He looked like a man on the edge. His hair was a mess, his tie was loosened, and his face was pale. "I'm changing my phone number," he announced, his voice flat and defeated. "I've been the victim of some kind of identity attack. My number has been leaked to every spammer on the planet. So, if you need me, you'll have to email me for the new one." He looked around the room, his eyes lingering on each of us, searching for a hint of a smirk, a flicker of triumph. He found nothing. We all just nodded with solemn understanding. Inside, I was erupting. It was a victory so complete, so perfect, it felt like a scene from a movie. I hadn't just gotten revenge, I had used his own laziness and arrogance against him. He was so disconnected from his team that the idea that one of us could be responsible was completely beyond him. In the end, I didn't stay at that company much longer. I found a new job with a manager who actually manages, and a company that respects my time. But I'll never forget Mr. Collins. He taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the most satisfying justice isn't loud and explosive. Sometimes, it's quiet, relentless, and delivered through 1,000 tiny cuts, or in his case, 1,000 tiny sales calls. If this story gave you that little thrill of satisfaction, do me a huge favor and smash that like button. It tells the YouTube gods that justice is worth fighting for. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What's the most satisfying, well-deserved revenge you've ever witnessed or heard about? And of course, if you want to hear more stories about petty tyrants getting exactly what they deserve, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next.